Good evening, space monkeys, and welcome to Freelancing. My name is BlueHighwind, and I am way behind. It's now no longer 2014, it's now a year called 2015. Who would have thought? 2015 comes after 2014. Personally, I would have thought it would have been 2017. But this joke sucks, so let's move on. 2014 ended back about a month ago, and I still have not done my best of or worst of lists or really anything. So, real critics managed to get it done early December. I'm not a real critic. I am a dude with a katana. That's really all my credentials are. That's it. I go to movies and I got a katana. That's all. All I do. I don't know why that makes me worthy of watching movies or anything, but it doesn't matter. I got a list anyway, and you're gonna listen to it, because that's what you do. You're a space monkey. You're stuck floating out into space, lost in the void of meaninglessness and the endless chatter of the internet, and then occasionally I'll deign to go and send you a transmission, and you really have nothing better to listen to, do you? And really, I do wish I could send you more transmissions more quickly, but time is not really on my side, and I gotta get things done when I can. So, I could have done the worst of list quite a while ago, but there were still a few 2014 films I wanted to see, and there was always the chance that, say, American Sniper might have really sucked. American Sniper did not suck. It wasn't great. A review of that's coming at some point, I know, but did not suck. That's all that matters. These movies did suck. These movies are very bad. And I figure, you know what? Might as well start my end of 2014 celebration here with the worst, and then I'll do a second post, which is going to be the various other soup of awards, that sort of stuff, all those kinds of other things to talk about, and then the big moment, the great moment, the best films of 2014. But first, we gotta go negative. We gotta go bad. Bad times are ahead. Because even though 2014 was a fantastic year, I saw more great films in 2014 than probably at any other point during my life. Movies that came out in 2014. I mean, in 2007, I think I saw The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and about 100 other great films because I first got my Netflix account. That was a fantastic year. My God. Happy memories. But we're not talking about 2007 because that was like 8 years ago. Who cares? Done. I know people weren't even born in 2007. Unimportant. It's 2014. It's the worst of the list. The times are difficult. The movies make us suffer. But we gotta watch them. I mean, I gotta watch them. You just have to listen. You have the easy job. I had to see all this shit. Oh boy! I got to see all this shit. And this is what I have to show for myself. So first up, the dishonorable mentions. These are films that were very bad, but didn't quite make the worst of list for a number of reasons, but doesn't matter. I just felt they were bad enough that they deserved at least a mention. So I'll just run by them really fast. It's Son of God, the RoboCop remake. As Above, So Below. The remake of Godzilla. Yes, the remake of Godzilla. Fuck off if you like that movie. Bryan Cranston died in the first act, and there was no Godzilla in it. That's all I need to say. The Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return. And last but not least, Under the Skin. Yeah, I know that one's ending up on a lot of best of lists. It doesn't belong there. It's very bad. So anyway, when it comes to the worst films of 2014, we begin with number 10, The Hobbit 3, The Battle of the Four Armies. There were 4 armies in that movie. I know Peter Jackson counted 5. I counted 4. Alright, let me go through it, alright? There were 4 goddamn armies in that movie. There was the humans, there was the elves, there was the dwarves, and there were the orcs. The orcs divided their army, but that does not mean that there were 2 armies. There was 1 army of dwarves that happened to split up. Okay? Because the warg wolves did not show. They weren't involved in this movie. So there was only 4 armies in the Battle of the 5 Armies. which is just really the beginning of the problem. Look, I know Tolkien fans, you wanted the Hobbit movies to work. I know Hollywood, you really wanted the Hobbit movies to work because The Lord of the Rings was just ate cash. Just tons of bullion, filling up rooms. It must have been wonderful. Great times. And I know you miss those times. We miss them too. The Lord of the Rings were fantastic. But it's not going to happen again. You can't do it again. Sequels never quite work. Especially sequels to franchises. Need I remind you of another prequel trilogy? Which you know what I'm talking about already. And I hate to go there, because basically it's like bringing up Nazis in an argument, you know? Star Wars prequels, the argument's over. Can't really go past there. But The Hobbit 3 really started making me think of the Star Wars prequels, and I hate to go there, because Peter Jackson is a good director. He's a man with a vision, he's got his own sense of humor, he's got his own comic timing. He made Brain Dead, or, yeah, Dead Alive here in the United States, which was great. There was gore everywhere. It was hilarious. And then there's The Hobbit 3, which is just CG splooge. Splooge everywhere. It's not really watchable. And it's not a Hobbit movie anymore. You know, Martin Freeman's there, and he's great. There could never have been a better Bilbo Baggins than Martin Freeman, but where is he in all of this? He's sitting and watching all of these side characters fight. He's sitting and watching a love triangle between a character that doesn't exist and a character that was not in the book to begin with, and one character who was just a name. That's it. That's their love triangle. A character that doesn't belong there, a character that does not exist, and a character who wasn't really a character to begin with. And this takes up like an hour. And then the final fight is between a character who is not the hero, side minor character, and an orc captain who actually died 100 years before the book is set. And this goes on for an hour in ridiculous, over-the-top CG nonsense. It just stopped making any fucking sense after a while. Why did the sandworms show up? Why are there sandworms in this? Can you please explain that to me? You know, it's just such a mess. And the Hobbit trilogy started with such promise. I mean, we really were there. We were ready. I saw the first Hobbit film with like a dozen friends. Alright, we made it a moment. We made it a big deal. We were all there. Then, when I saw The Hobbit 3, I was all alone, because nobody cared anymore. No one wanted to go see it. They knew what it was. I knew what it was going to be before I got there. It was a little better than I expected. But still, it was crap, and it was long, and it was stupid, and it made no sense. This movie did not need to exist. You know, the whole Hobbit trilogy was just a misfire. Bang! In the wrong direction. Just failure. And that's depressing, because I know so much artistry and love and affection went into these movies, and I hate to put it here with the kinds of shit that is gonna follow, because Peter Jackson deserves so much better than what I'm lumping him in with, but seriously, you gotta go and make a point. The entire franchise was a house of fucking cards, and it collapsed. Gone. All over the place. Collapse. Failure. And that we gotta remember. Though, I will have to say one thing. If the Hobbit trilogy has accomplished anything, it thankfully killed the idea of 60 frames per second. That was such a stupid idea for films to do. Let's never do that again. Please no. Number 9 was Transcendence. Perhaps the only film to one day become a hate crime. This movie is the birth of a nation for post-humanism. That's pretty much it. Wally Pfister, who once upon a time was a great cinematographer for Christopher Nolan, now is a horrible director of mediocre, bad sci-fi films. And Transcendence in terms of cyberpunk is basically as stupid as it gets. Completely reactionary, fearful filmmaking, fear-mongering of the possibilities of science, which is so dumb that when it tried to be smart, it actually ended up being stupider. It was a movie that tried to have its cake and eat it too, because Johnny Depp's character, who decides to go and upload his consciousness to the internet when he's dying, is thought to be completely evil, and he makes cyborg people. And then the evil, I guess, good guys, kinda, kill him and shut down the internet forever, taking us back down to the Stone Age. Yay, I hope you enjoy living in caves, because that's what these people did to you. Congrats. But no, he's a good guy, and as it turns out, transcendence and posthumanism and all that's good, I think. But if it was good, why were there fucking zombies? Am I missing something? Really, why was he making the Board Collective if he was actually a good guy? Seriously, was this one hell of a confusing, bizarre, hopeless movie. Just, it had no idea where it was supposed to be. I think maybe somewhere, maybe in the first draft, there was some intelligent idea going on, but it wound up completely being drowned out in just ill-conceived ideas. Number 8, America the Movie. Dinesh D'Souza's second propaganda film, this time trying to prove that America was not so bad. Yes, killing all the Indians, well, we didn't really mean to. Vietnam, well, mistakes were made. What are you gonna do? Oops. Japanese internment, well, he doesn't even talk about that, so who even cares? Yeah. So, Dinesh D'Souza goes on a confusing sort of tour of American history, basically attacking Howard Zinn and the people's history of the United States, deciding that, well, no. All that's wrong, America was always great, and I love America, and fuck you, Obama, you goddamn communist. Basically, the gist of this. He does make a slightly more nuanced argument, but it really boils down to, well, yeah, slavery sucked, but, there's one black woman who was a millionaire. Cha-ching! Yay! And there was one black dude who held slaves. Man, doesn't that equal things out for the races? One example of a bad black person and one example of a wealthy black person in the 19th century. We are square. We're all square. Yay for America. And, yeah, Dinesh D'Souza recently compared himself to Martin Luther King on his Twitter feed. That's all you need to know about this motherfucker. He's in jail now, or was in jail recently for tax evasion, and he thinks that he's a martyr for it. No, you're not a martyr. You are just a very bad filmmaker who does very bad scholarship. History weeps because of you, Dinesh D'Souza. Number 7 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh, I wish that this is the kind of movie where you could go and sing the cartoon theme song and see all your favorite insane villains like, well, I was born after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles craze started. I was more of a Street Sharks fan. Jossum! But, yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was our double dose of Michael Bay for 2014, which I was dreading. Oh my god. After Pain and Gain, I could not imagine ever even remotely enjoying anything Michael Bay ever did again. Then Transformers came out, and I'm like, Transformers. Get it? Yeah? No? Yeah, fuck you. Anyway, Transformers 4 came out, which wasn't that bad. So I'm like, alright, maybe Michael Bay isn't that bad after all. Maybe, his produced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, directed by Jonathan Liebesman, maybe that won't be so bad. And, oh my god, it's really that bad. Oh god, I can't even look at the Ninja Turtles. They're these big, lumpy, moldy, Brussels sprout monsters with far too much detail and noses for some reason. And Megan Fox is horrible, and the plot makes no sense. The villain is trying to blow up Manhattan to become a billionaire, even though he already is a billionaire. And there's a big chase down a mountain, which apparently must be in Yonkers or the Bronx. And here, if you know anything about New York geography, there aren't mountains nearby New York City. There are a couple fairly large hills. There are no mountains, okay? This is that basicness. It was just a big, obnoxious kind of movie. The Ninja Turtles just weren't any fun. They're supposed to be light and happy. They were just big, bulky, and threatening. There's nothing to enjoy here. In a film, not a film, in a year full of great superhero movies. Captain America 2, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man 2, Big Hero 6, just to name a few. All great superhero films. X-Men Days of Future Past. You got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to remind us just how bad a superhero film can be. Number 6 is Jauja. 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 Ha ha. How ha. Ha-hwa? It's the Lisandro Alonso film that came out at New York Film Festival. It's supposed to be a Western, I think. But really, it's Viggo Mortensen is in Argentina. He's playing a Dane. His daughter runs away. And he follows her into the desert to get her back. And then he walks across the desert. He comes into shot a mile away. He walks for 5 minutes to the camera. Reverse shot, we see his back. Walks a mile away. See this for 5 minutes. That's 2 hours. And the ending makes no fucking sense on any level. It's a movie you've never seen, so who cares? But if anyone ever goes up to you and is like, hey, let's watch Jauja, you don't. Really don't. Number 5 is Pompeii. Paul Thomas Anderson is going to have a movie on my best of list. Paul W.S. Anderson has a movie on my worst of list. Pompeii is what happens when you mate Titanic with Gladiator. And you think, ooh, 2 best picture winning films. These are going to be some spiffy, sexy children, aren't they? No, instead you get a completely meandering movie that's bored of its own plotline. You got Jon Snow and Emily Browning trying to be in a love triangle, but the film doesn't seem to care. And then an hour and a half passes. Much more interesting characters are threatened. You know, Mr. Echo from Lost, Adewale Ajuwang, I can't pronounce his name, alright? I'm sorry, I'd like to be able to pronounce your name. I like you. I liked you in a lot of things. I just can't, I don't know how to pronounce your name. You're Mr. Echo from Lost. Or you're possibly the enforcer villain from The Mummy 2. We could go with that. But anyway, Pompeii, you know, it just sort of rambles along on a completely bored love triangle between 2 people with no chemistry whatsoever, and then a volcano erupts, and you think these characters will be smart enough to run away, because volcano, you know, there's a few things you can't fight. You know, you can't fight volcanoes. When a volcano shows up, it's lava, you know. Oh, you're a great trained Celtic warrior, Jon Snow. Ain't that wonderful? No, you got lava, alright? You run away. No. I gotta go save my girlfriend and this stupidness. And 2 characters that don't even know each other start a fight for no particular reason, just for fun. And they all die. So, there you are. That's your big lesson. If there's a volcano, run away. That's it. The people who did run away lived, and they lived to have children. And we're descended from that higher breed of humanity. The lower breed of humanity, they're dead. And you know what? Really, they deserve to die. This was a shitty movie. Number 4, Atlus Shrugged Part 3. Who is John Galt? Indeed, who is John Galt? Doesn't matter. The Atlus Shrugged trilogy is a testament to the power of the free market. Because usually, when a movie flops completely disastrously, they don't get a sequel. Atlas Shrugged Part 1, no one wanted to see. So, they made Atlas Shrugged Part 2. No one wanted to see Atlas Shrugged Part 2. So, they made Atlas Shrugged Part 3. And I guess if there was more book to adapt, if Ayn Rand had possibly been wordier, and God can imagine if that was even possible, they could make an Atlas Shrugged Part 4. But they won't. Atlas Shrugged Part 3 is roughly 70% stock footage. It's cheaply made, it's ugly, it's a film that should be depicting the end of the world, the economic collapse of the United States. So that should be exciting, fascinating stuff. Instead, it's slow and bland, and the characters are unlikable, and this has been a bizarre trilogy where every single time they've completely cut cast and director, because they can't afford to keep these actors, even though they are C and D list level actors, together for the next film. So every single film is a different director's cheap-ass interpretation of the Ayn Rand grand story. And even if you are an insane, objectivist, obsessed lunatic, you can't watch this film. It is unwatchably bad. You know, call it trampling on the legacy of Ayn Rand. I call it basically what this movie deserved. When no one wants to see your films, this is what you end up with. You may have a grand artistic vision, but you do need bankroll, ultimately. So, there you are. The free market told you. This is what you end up with. Number 3, God's not dead. No, God is dead, because if God was alive, this movie would never have been made. I kid. If God's out there, he's blessing great films like Birdman, you know? He had nothing to do with God's Not Dead. God's Not Dead is a hour and a half, I guess, advertisement for the Newsboys, who are a Christian rock band. Also, an advertisement for Duck Dynasty. And there's a few kind of right-wing Christian storylines peppered in there, too. A boy, none other than Joss Whedon. Yes, fresh off the sets of Avengers and Much Ado About Nothing, goes to college, and he meets an Ivory Tower director, played by Kevin Sorbo, who tells him, "You have to go and renounce your faith in order to pass my Philosophy 101 class." Which is completely insane. This does not happen outside of Chick Tracts. But it happens here in God's Not Dead. Because, you know, this is the fantasies of right-wing Christian people come to life. So they have a long series of debates, which should be interesting. There's a long list of literature about philosophers debating God and the nature of humans and what we can know about the universe. But that stuff doesn't happen. Instead, they talk about, you know, the Big Bang and evolution. Because what would a philosophy professor know about any of those things? But that's not really the important thing, because, you know, you got the guy from Duck Dynasty, and you got the Newsboys. Ain't that great? And there's a number of other side plots. Dean Cain abandons his girlfriend, who has cancer, and then finds God again, but never finds his girlfriend again. Girlfriend with cancer finds God, even though she was an atheist blogger. Muslim girl finds God, and then her father, who, like all Muslims, is evil and hateful, kicks her out of her house. Lovely. Charming. Fuck this movie. Number 2, Vampire Academy. Imagine being dropped into a hen house with 10,000 hens clucking incessantly at you. That's basically the script for Vampire Academy. Once upon a time, there was a film called Twilight. There was a film called Twilight 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they were all great. They were wonderfully little, silly, ridiculous films. I look back at writing the reviews of the Twilight films fondly. I do not look back on Vampire Academy, yet another Twilight ripoff, possibly the last one, to come to theaters, fondly at all. It's made by the Waters brothers, one of which made Heathers, a great 1980s black comedy. The other one made Mean Girls, which is a decent 2000s comedy. So you think it has the pedigree of a film that actually has something to say about teenagers and women and young women, you know, that sort of stuff. More beyond the ridiculousness of a vampire subculture and various vampire job classes and where they put their stats and what spells they've junctioned and all that shit. But no, it's actually more interested in that and slut-shaming and the various bullshit that got passed around your high school lunchroom, which at the time certainly seemed very important, I guess. To me, it seemed like bullshit then, and now it seems like bullshit infinitely more. Vampire Academy was pure electric pain to watch, because it was trying so badly to be funny and trendy when it isn't. It's a genre that's already passed. We're done ripping off Twilight. Now we're ripping off Hunger Games. Look how much we've advanced. And, you know, there's nothing more embarrassing than an old man trying to be hip. And that's what Vampire Academy felt like to me. It was a mess of a movie, and it was unwatchable, really. Just bad. But it was kind of an entertaining, fun bad, I guess, in terms of masochism. You know, it was agonizing to watch, but you were never bored, which is not like my number one. And you know what my number one is, right? You do. I told you what it was. I did. Last video, if you actually watched it, I told you what my number one worst film of 2014 is. And you know what? I gave it the benefit of the doubt. I saw a lot of movies in the remaining time. Went out and saw quite a number of films. There are a number of films I have not seen. I never saw Blended. I never saw Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. There's always the chance. I never saw The Identical. There's always a chance these films could be worse. But Left Behind. I can't imagine a film worse than Left Behind. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for 5 years now. I think it actually has been 5 years, hasn't it? Holy goddamn shit. But I can't imagine a film worse than Left Behind, because film is an art form, right? One assumes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is just a job like any other job, and people just don't care, and you get the illusion of entertainment. But Left Behind makes you see just how mercenary and meaningless filmmaking can be, you know? Do you remember those Dare, Don't Do Drugs films that you watched back in 3rd grade, you know? Those public service announcement films that insurance companies would put out? Those sorts of things? That's the level of filmmaking we're dealing with here. There are a lot of crazy, badly made right-wing films, Christian films that I put on my list. And they were all bad. They were all D-list films. They're not real movies. Let's be honest. They're not. God's Not Dead is not a real film in the way that Guardians of the Galaxy is a real film. Left Behind is not a real film in the way that even Vampire Academy is a real film. There's entire stratums of difference. You know? It's like comparing a human being to a homunculus trying to be a human being. You know, like sad, pale imitation of a real film. Left Behind is not even Hallmark Channel level of filmmaking. Sci-Fi Channel films have more to this. You can watch an Asylum ripoff of Left Behind, and it probably would end up being a better film. You know, it's based, of course, on the apocalypse. And I've said so much about Left Behind, I don't know why I'm bothering going through it again, but why not? You know, this movie's really bad. I like picking on it. So, it's based on the apocalypse. The idea that the world will end, that God will blow us all up in a cataclysm of fire. And that sounds like the recipe for a really great film, you know? Just imagine all the CG special effects insanity that could come across. You know, you think The Hobbit 3 had too much excess to it. Just imagine if somebody actually put money to make the Book of Revelations. My God! Popcorn time. Nope. Not happening with Left Behind. Nope. What you get is an airplane. An airplane flown by a suicidally disinterested Nicolas Cage and a bunch of other actors who you've never heard of, which flies around and then makes an emergency landing. And that's it. It's an airport movie in 2014. Airport 2014. Who would have thought that 70s disaster films would have a resurgence with right-wing Christian B-movies? Not even B movies, C movies, D movies, Z movies, Z-grade cinema. Left Behind is a movie that was loved by nobody, made for chumps, and luckily, I'm the one here who actually has to defend cinema. So, I have to go and say definitively, Left Behind is the worst goddamn movie of 2014. Anybody who liked this film, get the fuck out. You don't know what a movie really is. You don't. People who made Left Behind, do not try to pretend with me that you care at all about your jobs. You did it for a paycheck. I respect that. People do a lot of things for money. It's how you live. But some of us actually have to watch these things. And as bad as the apocalypse might be, as painful and agonizing as the entire world set alight in a light of sea of fire as God and the devil battle. That could not hurt as much as a movie simply made by people who could not care. And that's Left Behind. Worst film of the year. Again, the worst film of the year. I told you, here it is again. So, Space Monkeys. The second part of my year in review should come out soon enough, probably next day. And then once I see yet one more film needs to be seen, I will then put up my best of 2014 list, where we could go and put aside this awful chapter of bad movies and look at the bright side of life, the good side. Because 2014 was a fantastic year in filmmaking. Glorious, godly, maybe even. And no, there are no right-wing Christian films on my best of list. There's a reason for that. Because those movies are horrible. Hopefully in 2015 they learn their lesson and stop making movies. Because really, you're no good at it. Thank you. Have a good evening.